Doris with Aldi Books, and I am here to wrap up some books. No rambling this morning because, as you can see, there's some hefty thoughts involved in some of these. So I'm just gonna dive right in so I don't get distracted and lose whatever thoughts I have. So first up, we have Mr. Flood's Last Resort by Jess Kidd. This is my third Jess Kidd, and I can't wait for her to put out her next novel because I love her. Her writing is just so charming. This one probably is my least favorite of the three, simply because I didn't connect with the characters in this one the same way I did with the other two. And I think that has to do with the central relationship, but I don't want to spoil any of that for you, so I won't say anything. This involves a home care worker and an elderly gentleman that is a hoarder, and their relationship as it develops, some issues with people in his life, and our main character's next door neighbor, Renata, who was my favorite character in the book. She is a trans woman. I really loved her. She was the character that I held on to. And Jess Kidd has this trademark ghosty situation in all of her novels. And in this one, it was kind of, I guess, imaginary characters as saints that you can see on this. And I struggled with this one because there were so many characters. I didn't solidify on any of the saints and the other issues that were going on, like I said. But overall, it was still delightful to read. So yes, Jess Kidd is awesome. Awesome. And then I finally finished Fiebre Tropical by Juliana Delgado Lopera. I read this for quite a while. I don't know why it took me so long, but it was really, really fun read. This centers around a mother and her two daughters that move from Colombia to Miami. The grandmother had migrated the year before, and they get involved with a local church, charismatic church, predominantly Colombian. And hilarities and poignancy ensues. Our main character is exploring her sexuality and falls in love with the minister's daughter. So complications, obviously. The outstanding point of this book is the language. This book plays on the borderline with two languages in such a brilliant way. I just was completely immersed in the voice coming from Spanish and English in this book. Oh, it was clever. It was so clever and funny and sharp, witty, very witty. So yeah. I will say the language in this one is atrocious. It is so bad. I think I didn't warn people about that earlier because a lot of the really bad language is in Spanish. And I don't know if that's common for, I find that bad language isn't as bad if it's not in my home language. But as I got to the end of this book, I realized, oh wow, this language is really bad. So anyway, there's that disclaimer if some of you are put off by that. And then I finished Feast of the Goat by Mario Vargas Llosa, translated from the Spanish by Edith Grossman. There you go. So this is a fictionalized account of the assassination of Trujillo, who was the dictator of the Dominican Republic for 31 years. I started out, this is told in 3 timelines. So one is from the voice of Trujillo himself. One is from the voices of the men involved in the assassination plots, and there are many voices in that. And then the third is from the voice of a woman who was 14 when she last associated with Trujillo. So it's my understanding that the Trujillo voices and the assassination voices are like fictionalized, but from, actual historical peoples, and that the voice of the woman is purely fictional, but is meant to represent how women were treated during the regime. So initially, this book was just okay. I really got engrossed in Trujillo's voice immediately. I think the author really has studied him and connected with him, and you could really hear that. The weakest one for me was the woman's voice, and I was kind of frustrated that he had to use a fictionalized narrative there. Not a fictionalized, but a created narrative there instead of like an actual person like he did with the others. And I didn't like her voice. It was kind of flat, and those sections, the author doesn't seem to have a firm command on a point of view. So when you're in the woman's mind, she switches from like third person conversations with people around her to second person talking in her mind with her dad, and or to him directly, and then even first person talking to herself in her mind, and there's not real boundaries for that. It's just very fluid, so that can be awkward. And like I said, the character just was really flat for me initially. But I got to chapter 9, and it really came together in the discussion of this historical scaffolding of the U.S. sanctions and the Catholic Church coming out against the regime at that point, and just all of the impacts of that, and it really took off. So yeah, this is an excellent read. I could totally see how it won the Nobel Prize. Trujillo was really the strong point for me throughout the book, and the way the author uses his Trujillo's 70 at this point, and he's beginning to struggle with incontinence and erectile dysfunction, and the way the author uses those things kind of as a metaphor for Trujillo losing control and losing power, and just becoming impotent in his political career, is really pretty remarkable. But yeah, this was a really excellent read. So it's got me on this bender to read more about island dictatorships, I guess. So there's that. And then I finished The Invention of Nature by Alexander von Humboldt. I keep doing that. It's Alexander von Humboldt's New World is the subtitle, by Andrea Wolf. So this was about a famous, I think he was he Austrian? German speaker. So, it wasn't written in German, but it really fits into that German lit that's going on this year with Mel and Britta. And so this was kind of the first major world-renowned naturalist, and he was such a big deal in his time. So it's a shame that he has kind of fallen out of our consciousness. But a lot of places in the US and around the world are named after him. And yeah, it was just amazing, especially the chapters dealing with his trip through South America was just awesome. Awesome. Here is the map. I'm looking for the map. So yeah, if you're into, like, this is a perfect springathon read, but it's kind of long, so budget your time. But I mean, it's not that long, 400 pages. But yeah, just an important, I think, person to be aware of in the environmental movement. And then first book that I have finished in May was The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. This just won the Pulitzer, and I was kind of between quick reads, so I said, let me just grab that up and read it, because it's been hanging around for a while. And I really enjoyed it. This is it's set in Tallahassee, Florida, where I went to university, but back during the civil rights movement. And it's a boy who is sent to a correctional school institution for a crime that he didn't commit in his time there and after. So yeah, I enjoyed it. This is, I think, a bit of a polarizing book, even though it's just won the Pulitzer. And I will say, I see the flaws, and I see why people wouldn't connect with it. It's very stylized. So the issues I saw with it were, number one, it's only 200 pages, and I read middle grade books from time to time and really enjoy them. And I feel like stylistically this is set up, along those lines, with the abbreviated writing and the jumps in time to kind of compacted storyline in places. But I think all of these choices, the issues that I saw, were deliberate on the part of the author for reasons. So with this stylistic choice, with the brevity and condensation of the narrative, I think Colson Whitehead was appealing to a larger audience. I think that this will make the book more widely read, and I think thematically it's great that he did that. Just to get these thoughts out there in the public consciousness. So the next two issues were plot holes. The first one is, you have a few chapters where our main character, you learn about him as a child and early teen years, kind of a get to know him setup. And then you kind of, just as his life's about to blossom into this, lovely future, it comes to a screeching halt when he is, taken into custody for, under, circumstances that, were shaded, but we know that, he did nothing wrong. And so you jump, and he's suddenly, in the school, and you just know what happened, but there's nothing said about all of the work that went into preventing him from, you know, like, why was he allowed to just, you know, surely people would have realized that he didn't do that. I mean, look at, you know, who he was. And so it just feels like a huge plot hole that he's charged with this crime that he didn't commit, and anybody would have known that he didn't do it. But I think that's a deliberate choice on the part of the author, because, you know, me as, you know, an entitled white person sitting in this chair in 2020, I have every confidence in the justice system. But, you know, for this black man in 1960, it's just, the faith isn't there, because this kind of thing happened. And so I think the point is that, what is there to say? It happens. So I think he jumped there on purpose. And then the other plot point comes in the last third of the story, with the jump from, you know, the teen years in the school to the present. And it deals with a character and, you know, his responses seeming a little off. And I don't want to say anything more about that one, because plot twist, and it totally makes sense. So I'll just stop there. But anyway, it was, yeah, great reading going on. I've got a lot of great reads in progress right now. And yeah, let me just stop there. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you're all doing well, and I will chat with you soon. Bye.